Hey, what's up, guys? It's the Fantasy Files podcast with your co-hosts Brandon Deutsch and Grant Mona here. Um, this is our third football one so far, and we've been on. We haven't had to do the talk of shame yet, but we're going to have to do it today. Before we start, if you guys are unaware of our past episodes, we talk about winners and losers each week, which is like sit start, our version of that. And it's whoever's going to get 15 plus fantasy points for as like a running back, wide receiver, tight end. As a quarterback, it's 18. I'm pretty proud of my Carson Wentz comments last week. I'll start there, even though we both like really screwed up on our picks this last week. I mean, I was on TikTok, and this guy like 2 weeks later is like, it's good. We're starting to get haters. This guy's like, I said, Devontae Smith is a sure thing winner this week. This was 2 weeks ago when he was a loser, not when he was a winner this last week. And this guy was like, he scored 2 points. And I really wanted to respond to him like, dude, why don't you go do a whole show and like get analysis? The whole point is like, we know our stuff. And at the end of the day, sometimes it's just luck. Like we watch the game, we see consistency. We base our picks based on our feeling, how we see the game.
I
And
mean, guys, we go down in our podcasts. If you see it, we go down the game logs and like we show you like what he's been doing.
Exactly. So if we get a pick like wrong, that's very rare. Miles Gaskin, we were actually right about, I believe. I think because he fumbled, even though he got that touchdown. I think he got less than 15 fantasy. Pretty sure. It's funny because I know I texted Grant when Gaskin scored down that first drive touchdown. I'm like, look, he proved us wrong. Next drive he has a fumble and he really 14 carries for 29 yards.
Oh my goodness.
Miserable. It was really bad. But yeah, so I'm gonna start first on the talk of shame because I was wrong about like guys we mentioned, Boston Scott, Elijah Mitchell. We don't need to go in depth on the rest. Wrong week. I apologize. Did not know both of those guys would know game script. We were both 65 or actually no 50% this week. So we're just under like 60, 70%. We need to be 70%. So I'm gonna say this is my talk of shame speech. We will not be that this week. What are your thoughts, Grant? What's your talk shame speech right now?
I'm gonna talk of shame. Every time it seems like I make a prediction about somebody, the next week we just motivate them to do amazing. I don't know, man. Look, I base my picks off of what I see in the week. These guys they must listen to our podcast because Devontae Smith went off too. What was
Yeah,
that
right
about?
right after I posted. So on we've been doing
tell
pretty
them about all
well.
the people that view
Our
your
views.
stories.
So the fantasy pod. Thank you everyone who's listening, being a part of the community, watching us as broadcasters and into this podcast and sports world. But yeah, we keep tagging athletes. Like I tag the highlights every week on Instagram. I tagged in basketball Evan Mobley and DeAnthony Melton and Tyrese Maxey, and all three looked, and they've been playing great. And then we tagged in football Miles Gaskin. We are just like, when we were talking about cryptocurrency, which he's a volatile cryptocurrency. And he looked at it and he was just, he was probably pretty mad. So he went out there and he got a touchdown, and then he went back to he's like, I don't care about those guys anyways. So then he fumbled the next drive after. But Devontae Smith also looked when I posted your thing about, Devontae Smith, he hasn't been consistent all year. And it's never been Devontae Smith's problem. It's been Jalen Hurts problem, because Devontae Smith, there's still an argument that he's the most talented receiver in that class. I know Jamar Chase has Joe Burrow, and he's probably the best, and Jalen Waddle's pretty good, and we never know because he has Tua as his quarterback. But Devontae Smith is up there with those three. And we were just saying that based on his game logs before, 2 points, 8 points, but he saw it right before the game, day before, and he ended up having a brilliant game, all wrong. And then Elijah Mitchell also looked, and he did prove us wrong because we said he was going to be great, and he obviously was not great. Elijah Mitchell, he's one of my favorite players. I think he's really underrated. But like I said, he was taken out of the game script. So let's start here so we're going to keep tagging you guys. We hope you listen to the podcast. We're starting to get noticed by these athletes. We're going to keep tagging you. It might be annoying, but you're going to have to follow us, and we're going to have to keep tagging you guys. Hopefully we're looking. So our percentages there are better than our percentages with our picks last week, which is hilarious. We tagged like 6 guys, and all 6 looked in football and basketball. But and go follow us on Instagram, by the way, Fantasy Files Pod, and on TikTok, Fantasy Files Pod. So Yeah, so let's get into it. Let's start. I want to start. Usually we start with running backs. Today, I wanted to start with tight ends, something completely different. We always go wide receiver, running back to start, but let's start with tight ends. George Kittle, and he usually wouldn't be on the cusp because he's been obviously just not himself this year until last week. And this last week, he really showed that he was George Kittle, but they lost. And part of the reason he had that many targets is because one, they guarded the heck out of Debo Samuel. So he had an off game, right? And second, they were behind. So they had to throw to Kittle like 20 times. He fumbled the ball, which lost him some fantasy points. He should have had 20 plus fantasy day. I think he had 18 because he had like 100 receiving yards and a touchdown. But that fumble is like minus 3 points always. That's why if you have like Carson Wentz, it's always like they didn't actually fumble in the first half when they were up like 45-10. They're
Troy
making a
Aikman.
joke.
Troy Aikman's
Oh, was it
always on his
Troy Aikman?
ass.
Man, he had a great game. And I talked to that guy, Johnson, like he deserves to be the starting quarterback over White just because of what he did in the last two quarters. Almost staging that comeback again. Indianapolis put in their third stringers. So, it's kind of like what happened the first game, Niners Lions, when the Niners were up like 45-10 or something. They took out all their first strings and the Lions scored like 4 touchdowns and got an onside kick. Again, another Kittle fumble that screwed that up. But going back to George Kittle, this is a guy that is really great. Obviously, the second best tight end in the league, talent wise. His blocking is amazing. You don't get fantasy points in blocking. They're going up against the Rams. And this is interesting because the Rams have been up and down on defense, surprisingly. They've been really up and down. I think he's going to be a winner this week. We usually wouldn't talk about George Kittle. Tight ends are a little different. The only guys we're not going to talk about is probably just like Travis Kelce and Kyle Pitts, maybe Darren Waller, like that, three guys, right? Because it used to be Dalton Schultz, but now we got to talk about Dalton Schultz because like he's been inconsistent. Dawson Knox, when he comes back, who knows? Because Josh Allen looked just horrendous last week. This is the weirdest game of all time. Like who knew the Jaguars were going to win that game? Like that was insane. Like you could have, I would have said I would have probably, it would have been more likely for me to see a unicorn than see the Jaguars beat the Bills in that game. Like I'm dead serious. Like I don't know how they won that game. Hats off to them. I think it was just Josh Allen against Josh Allen, not figuratively. Like I know that was like the story. Josh Allen like destroyed Josh Allen, but I'm talking quarterback Josh Allen destroyed himself. I think he was in his head the whole game, and that's why they like lost. But going back to George Kittle, I do think he's going to be a winner this week. I mean, the Niners are running options. They have to throw the ball. They're going to be down early. They're really not a good team. And I'm coming from like growing up a Niner fan. I thought they had Super Bowl aspirations again. They weren't going to get there because they don't have an elite quarterback. Like we know Trey Lance will become an elite quarterback at some point in his career, but Jimmy's not that. He's good. He's not like amazing. He's not going to win you a title. And we saw that what he did in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. But I thought they were going to be good. They're obviously a bad team. They just lost to Arizona Cardinals B team. They're going to be down early to Stafford. Their secondary is just gosh awful. It's terrible. Ever since Verrett got hurt, been able to guard it. They couldn't guard like air, dude. If like air was thrown their way, like that's how bad they are. Like Josh Norman got cut because he was like taunting, and he's like he's just like a pain in the.
Mhm.
Josh Norman's just an absolute for his whole career, and the only reason why he was on the roster early on is because he was in, and now since he's like sucks, no one wants him. And Kittle's a start. Do you agree? I know app banter right there, but I mean, I think Kittle's a must start the rest of the way. And the only reason, again, why we're bringing him up is because early on in the season he was getting 6 points in fantasy. So
Yeah, it's a definite automatic start. Like you said, the Rams defense has been up and down. I think I said that. I don't know if I said this last week or if I said it the week before. Um, I'm really not confident in the Rams defense, and that plays right into what Kittle does. I mean, who's gonna cover George Kittle? I mean, you're gonna have to put somebody pretty big. And Von Miller, I don't know if he's gonna play. I'm sure he will, but he's gonna be rushing off the edge. If you put a Reader on him, Reader can't keep up with Kittle. Like definitely not. Um, so he's really gonna have his way. I mean, obviously gonna put Ramsey on Debo, but you know who's going to cover him? That's what I'm worried about as a Rams fan. I'm worried about that. For you guys on your fantasy team, put him in. I mean, this guy, look, he had 8 target. He had 8 targets. It was second highest on the team. They're throwing it to him, and it's crazy because Jimmy's actually throwing it to him. This is the first week where it's kind of like, okay, this is who George Kittle. I remember this guy. Like this guy is elite. He went 6 for 101 with a touchdown. So I don't know if he'll get that many yards, but I do think he'll put up really good numbers, especially against a pretty thin Rams linebacking core. I mean, unless they put a corner on him, but even that's not going to bode well for your defense.
So
So,
he's an automatic winner, right? Like 6-0, so like
oh
7,
no,
8. Like with the pieces they have, and they're losing to Arizona's B team, like Cliff Kingsbury outcoaches you. I mean, Cliff Kingsbury couldn't outcoach a pole 2 years ago. I mean, hats off to him. He has a great offense now, and he's become a very good NFL coach. No one's denying that. But he's still not a better coach than Kyle Shanahan. Maybe he is now. I mean, Kyle Shanahan's lost his edge. He would never have lost a game like that. And he'll lose both games to McVay this
well,
year.
the
And
the
he used
thing
to own
is,
McVay.
the thing is, Cliff Kingsbury has Kyler Murray, and the Niners have Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean,
I mean,
that's a
eventually Trey
really
Lance
big difference,
hopefully will be representative of like a Kyler Murray type
right?
play. I mean,
Yeah,
Trey Lance is one of the most athletic players I think I've ever seen in my life. Just
he's
raw.
really talented,
Yeah, it's like when, yeah, exactly.
really talented.
100% really talented. All right, let's go to Dalton Schultz next. Last week we were out on him. We ended up being correct on that pick. I mean, he had 5 targets versus Denver. I mean, and again, the Cowboys just got absolutely demolished by Denver. No one expected that. Last week was like the weirdest week in NFL history. We could do a whole separate podcast discussing week 9 of the NFL, but right now we're talking specifically for your fantasy teams. I'm done with these banters. I'm locked in now. Sorry, it took me a little bit. I just go off because I have so many opinions about how the Niners are just because I watch every game and stuff. But Dalton Schultz, 5 targets, 54 yards, 0 touchdowns last week against Denver. It's like 7 fantasy points, maybe just because of like the 4 receptions, because he had 5 targets, 4 receptions. Week before, 2 receptions, 11 yards. Granted, that was Rush, who was quarterback, not Dak. The games that Dak has been quarterback, the last 5 games for Dalton Schultz, it's 58 yards, 1 touchdown, 79 yards, 0 touchdown, 79 yards, 0 touchdown, 54 yards, 0 touchdown. He's averaging 6-7 targets per game. And really, I mean, Dak's going to look for him, but if he doesn't produce that touchdown upside, I think he's a sit in most leagues. I think you can put a guy like, I mean, if you have, look, I mean, this guy, Pat Fryermuth, the guy for Pittsburgh Steelers. I know we were saying, remember I said he was going to be a winner this week and Hunter Henry was going to be a loser. And I was absolutely right. It dropped
2
Hunter Henry.
touchdowns.
Guess what? Now I'm going to probably, I'm be the league to win it all. I hope so. But like, I have the second best record, I think. And it's only because I'm not trying to brag, but you know, you're listening to this podcast, not because we don't know football. But I dropped Hunter Henry and picked up Pat Fryermuth because, dude, Eric Ebron's been out and the guy got like 8 targets a game and he got 2 touchdowns, bro. I was playing, it was him versus Deontay Johnson to see who won that matchup. And I was scared. The night before, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose to this guy who didn't even start his lineup 2 weeks ago and like hasn't started his line. He starts his lineup against me. Everyone seems to start their lineup against me, you know, just to screw with me. But you know, I ended up getting 2 touchdowns. I was right about
It's like me in basketball. Jeez.
And I got Batum now.
I
Game's
know.
over.
We'll get into
We'll
that.
get to that. But yeah, I picked up Fryermuth, dropped Hunter Henry, and just going back to Dalton Schultz, we were right about him too because of that embarrassing loss. Who knows what's going to happen? I think they're going to have to get Zeke the ball more. I think that's dwindle a tiny bit next week. I mean, I don't think Dak's 100%. I think that was evident in that last game.
Yeah. He didn't look right just from the beginning, and I think he should have sat out another week just because of how good Cooper Rush did. But talking about Dalton Schultz, I mean, it's been a tough couple weeks for this guy, and not just him, but the Cowboys' entire offense. But I think this Falcons defense is like a get right game. I think like they're gonna get right with this matchup. So I kind of like Dalton Schultz. I like Dalton Schultz just because I feel like the Falcons are just like a get right. I mean, the Falcons aren't terrible, but I feel like for the Cowboys offense, this Falcons defense is like a get right matchup. I mean, it's not Dalton Schultz's fault. I mean, look, he got 5 targets, but when Dak was in there, he had 8, 8, 7, and he had a lot more yardage and yards per target. So it's Dak had an off game. He wasn't fully healthy, but before that, he was balling out. So like, I'm not just gonna discredit Dalton Schultz just because he had 2 bad weeks. I
Well,
really
he's
like him, especially
obviously
against the
very
Falcons.
talented.
Yeah,
Obviously, no one's denying he's been one of the top 5, 6 tight ends in the league. Obviously has. I just, you know, the Falcons don't have a great defense, but I'm out on him. So you're in on him. You think he's a winner. I think he's a loser this week as much as I like Dalton Schultz. Let's move on to the guy we just talked about, Pat Fryermuth, 2 touchdown, 20-point fantasy week last week. I thought he was a winner. Henry was a loser. Made that distinction, picked up Fryermuth, and he saved my fantasy team. So I think he does it again. I mean, I don't know if Ebron plays. Obviously, if Ebron plays, Eric Ebron, his production is going to go slightly down, even though he's the better end. But he's playing Detroit. Detroit's coming to Pittsburgh, and it's Detroit is coming to Pittsburgh, and I just see Pat having another good game. I don't know if he gets in a touchdown, but he's going to get 7 targets. Like, he's playing Detroit, dude. He's playing Detroit. Big Ben might look like, dude. Big Ben is probably going to look like prime Joe Montana in that game, and he can't throw the football to save his life.
Big Ben's going to turn back the clock to 2005, man, when they won the Super Bowl.
Exactly. So I think Fryermuth's a definite winner this week. I think that he's not going to get 20 fantasy points again. Let's be real. When is he ever going to have 2 touchdowns in a game again? But he might get a touchdown in 15. And I think the 6-7 targets are going to get him to 15 points. I think it's one of the tight end must starts this week, considering what he did last week. Grant.
Yeah. And it's not just last week. I mean, the week before he had a touchdown too. And they're targeting him a lot, which is good because that means it's going to output to something. He went off for 2 touchdowns, but I mean, he had 6 targets, which means they want to throw it to him. And I've been seeing a lot of comparisons to a former Steelers tight end, Heath Miller, which is a perfect compare. I thought it was Heath Miller out there for a second, but against the Lions, I mean, I'd start anybody against the Lions. Shoot, I'd start Carson Wentz against the Lions, and I don't like him, so I'd start Myles Gaskin against the Lions. How about that? There's one for you. That's how much I am. That's how confident I am in Fryermuth this week.
Dang, Myles Gaskin. I mean, Myles Gaskin. I wish he was playing the Lions. He's not playing the Lions this week. But yeah. So I mean, he's playing Baltimore. Myles Gaskin's a definite sit, and we'll get to that. He's playing Baltimore. You kidding me? Like, Baltimore's only had 2 bad games defensively all year, and for whatever reason, it was against the Bengals, who looked awful all of a sudden. All right, I know we've been talking about a lot of tight ends. Let's finish on Hunter Henry. Patriots. He got back to his touchdown streak this week. He got a touchdown, hauled one in. He had like 3-4 receptions, 11 fantasy points, I think 12 maybe. You only get over to 15. You needed like a touchdown. He always gets like 10 because the touchdown is like 10 fantasy points. It's like 10 almost, and then or I think touchdown might be 8 fantasy points, but you know what I mean. If you have 4 receptions plus a touchdown, you'll get over the 15 threshold. So Hunter Henry is playing the Cleveland Browns, who have a really great defense, and that's shown. And I just think he's going to be, as much as I like him, I think he'll be a loser again this week, even though Mac Jones will probably throw his only touchdown pass to him. I mean, Mac Jones doesn't want to throw to Jacoby Myers, even though Jacoby Myers is so talented. Loves Hunter Henry, loves this guy right there. You know, Damian Harris will rush like probably 50 times. Ramondre Stevenson will get in the mix. You know what I'm saying? Like, they love to use their flex running backs like Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris. I mean, I just don't think.
I told you about Stevenson, man.
Yeah, but he had 0 fantasy points 2 weeks ago. He's Stevenson coin, even more volatile than Gaskin coin, and we'll get into that. But yeah, I mean, I think Hunter Henry's a loser this week. What do you think, Grant?
Yeah, I mean, I think he is. I mean, the reason I said he would be a winner is because I thought he would get another touchdown or probably more targets or more receptions. I just think his receptions are so low that you can't start him at this point. I mean, when he does catch it, it's a touchdown. Usually it's like touchdown or bust. But if he doesn't, I mean, he had 2 catches for 19 yards. Sure, he had a touchdown, fine. But that's not going to get you to where we project people. Like, we want more than 6 to 8 points. Like, we want like 10 to 15 or even more. So no, I think he's a sleeper this week. I mean, I know, look, he'll probably score another touchdown, but that's not enough. We need more than that. His most yards this year was 75, 6 for 75 with a touchdown. So I don't think he gets that against the Browns. The Browns have a pretty good defense. So
yeah. No, I'm with you. All right, let's move into we agree there. Let's move into running backs, and let's start with Ramondre Stevenson, the guy we just talked about. more volatile. Stevenson coin is more volatile than Gaskin coin. There's a 0% chance, even with his great game last week. I think there's a 0% chance. Well, not a 0% chance. Not that confident about that because no one ever knows with Bill Belichick. But I'm going to say this. I think Ramondre Stevenson is going to be a loser this week against the Browns. I think Damian Harris is going to have to go toe to toe with, I guess, Ernest Johnson. I mean, and Nick Chubb's not going to play. I don't think he's COVID. So, I mean, that was bad for my fantasy team after a 30-point week from Nick Chubb, and I have to now play Elijah Mitchell against the Rams, who I think Rams have actually given up a lot of rush yards, and we'll get into Elijah Mitchell in a sec. But Ramondre Stevenson is going to be a loser for me this week, just because I think Harris gets most of the touches, and I don't think they have such a good pass rush. I think Mac Jones is going to look like a little man against Myles Garrett. He's going to look like a little boy.
I'd like to add, though, before you go on, that both Harris and Stevenson are in the concussion protocol, and they were not at practice today, which is a Wednesday.
Yeah, they're both questionable, right?
So we'll just say if they are active.
Yeah, if they are active, Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris is going to be, I'm gonna say, a loser. I think the Browns shut him out. I mean, it's crazy to say. I just don't. I mean, look, I like Mac Jones, but like I said, he's gonna be a little boy, little frail man against Myles Garrett in that defense. Like, dead serious. Like that's gonna be like a rookie moment for him. I'm out on Mac Jones too. You just say Mac Jones is gonna be a loser. Ramondre Stevenson is gonna be a loser, and Damian Harris is gonna be a loser this week. All three.
Wow, all out on the Pats. What? Okay, well, I think it's going to be a much closer game than we. I just don't think the Browns are as good as we thought they would be. And I know the whole Odell Beckham thing, whatever. But if these guys are in the lineup, I mean, I'm going to have to sleep on Stevenson, maybe Damian Harris, because Damian Harris is pretty good, right? I mean, you've talked about this in weeks past. Damian Harris is really good, but I mean, if Stevenson, even if he is active, it doesn't even, I mean, shoot, he was 10 for 62. We didn't have any touchdowns, so it's not really that fantastic. And he had 2 targets on the receiving end for 44 yards, but man, it's tough to say because, first of all, they're in concussion protocol. Second of all, Stevenson ranks second with only 35 carries. But he does lead in catches, which is okay. But even then, he's not. I mean, he got 2 for 44. That's not going to break your bank. So yeah, I'm going to sleep on Stevenson.
Yeah, I mean, that's smart. Also, I want to say it's not like I'm out on the Pats. Like I think they'll lose, but I think it's going to be like a 10-7 game. Like Nick Chubb's out. Baker Mayfield has sucked this year. He's like, I wouldn't trust that guy with my life. Like, obviously not. Like, but you know what I mean? I wouldn't trust that guy with anything. Like, he's so up and down, so inconsistent. He looked good last week, but I mean, this is going to be a 10-7 win for the Browns just because I kind of like it. Ernest Johnson. I think that whole rushing attack is great. I think Ernest Johnson will be good this week. Thankfully, if you're going up against Ernest Johnson in fantasy, I mean, that's hit or miss because he's going up against the Patriots. And I do think he'll get a touchdown and over 15 fantasy points, but that's a tough defense. So I'm going to say Ernest Johnson in this game is going to be a winner. Baker Mayfield is going to be a loser. And the ghost of Odell Beckham Jr. is going to be a loser as well. They have no receivers anymore. I can't even name it. Jarvis Landry, I guess, loser as well.
Come on, Peoples-Jones, dude.
Oh, isn't he a tight end?
No.
Kind of looks like
Peoples-Jones. And Njoku's their tight end.
Oh, and Joke. I get him mixed.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I know.
Jones is really good, but I'm out on him too. Even though I really think Peoples-Jones is for a reason. I think he was like a second tight end because he's pretty, isn't he?
Yeah. He's very tall. He's very tall. He runs deep routes for them though. So
yeah, well, so does Njoku. It's so weird. You remember Njoku?
I know
that 90
Njoku's kind of like a wide receiver.
That's why I thought they were switched. I was almost
sure receiver.
Peoples-Jones was running like doing like tight end blocking and stuff, but whatever. So I'm out on those guys. The only guy, the winner for in this game period is Ernest Johnson. Oh, and maybe both if we're talking about.
Yeah,
right.
Take both defenses too.
Take both defenses this week. What are your thoughts there? Do you agree or what?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to agree with your defense thing. I don't think it's gonna be like this shootout. I mean, first of all, Baker Mayfield's hurt. Mac Jones has shown that all he likes to do is throw small passes to he likes to drop it off or throw it to his tight ends. Um, not Hunter Henry, but he likes to throw it to everyone else. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm going to say Stevenson is a no go. I'm also going to say, I mean, Dearness Johnson has filled in pretty well, and then look, Nick Chubb's going to be out again. He got COVID, so you know, it's such a tough one to put everyone in on this game because you don't know. First of all, we have like 4 question marks. We don't know who the running backs for the Patriots are going to be. We know Nick Chubb's out. Um, we know Odell Beckham Jr. is out. You actually made a pretty good prediction there with both defenses. It might be like 10-7 or like maybe like 14-10 or something
Yeah,
like
I
that.
think my best prediction was the ghost of Odell Beckham will get 0. He's not gonna play. That's really sad. Really sad what they did to Beckham too, because I actually heard, Beckham gets a lot of crap for being this like, media guy, social media guy, really, big into the culture, big into fashion, big in the rap industry. He's great at promoting his brand, and I think that gets him a bad rap. But from what I've teammate, and I think they really screwed him in Cleveland. I think that's going to be they're going to be really, really mad at themselves for letting him walk, and they should be mad at themselves for not more involved. I mean, he's Odell Beckham Jr. I get that, like, he's not the same Odell Beckham Jr. was in New York early on in his career, but he's still Odell Beckham Jr. Like, get him passes. I hope he ends up in a good place. All right, let's just go to. I know we were kind of like just mixing. We're talking about game by game, losers, winners. If we're sticking here on running backs, I'm going to say let's go to Myles Gaskin, our favorite to talk about. He's going up against Baltimore. I think it's a sure thing.
We have to stop talking about him.
Well, he's. I'm going to tag him again. Let's see if he looks. He's probably so mad at us if he gets tagged.
Look, Miles. You're probably, like I said before, you're probably an awesome guy. But I can't pick you up in fantasy, man. I can't do it. Nobody can right now. I'm so it's no hard on you, brother. It's fine. You might have a great year next year, but for now, dude, I'm sorry, but we just can't do it.
Exactly. I'm gonna do that exact screen of that right there, and I'm gonna tag him, and then he'll know we're good people. But yeah, he's a loser this week. I mean, there's an absolute. I think there's a greater chance of everybody seeing a unicorn than him getting plus fan. I'm dead serious. Like they're like Baltimore's defense. Are you kidding me? Like, yeah, they've been up and down, but Gaskin had 14 carries for like 29 yards last week. There's like, dude, and what is Tua gonna do against the defense of the Ravens, the secondary? They have a pretty good secondary, right? So like, no, take no Dolphins in this game. No Waddle, no Tua, no, not even Gesicki. Gesicki's not going to do anything. Like, neither will Gaskin. They'll give Gaskin the ball like they usually do. He'll probably get like 4 catches for like 2 yards a piece, but come on, he's not going to do anything. It's a guarantee. And if we're going to that game, we got to talk about Devontae Freeman as well. And I'm going to ask you your responses. I know you're going to say loser. I don't even have to ask you that. Devontae Freeman touchdown every single week he's running back. Every single week. He's great in the passing game too. Lamar Jackson likes to hand it off to him. I think Devontae Freeman a winner the last, I don't know. He's been a winner. I mean, fringe winner. He's anywhere between 12 and 17 fantasy points, but he was a winner the last couple weeks. I think he's gonna be a winner again. I think early gets to the 15-point threshold against this Dolphins defense, who, isn't terrible. I mean, I just think Devontae Freeman, if he is the lead ruck, which he was last week, he's going to have a huge day. So will Lamar Jackson. I think you got to start both of them, both sure thing winners this week. What are your thoughts on Devontae Freeman specifically, and to share anything on Gaskin? We love you, Gaskin.
I'm not going to talk about Gaskin because he's going to see that clip that I just said. So going down onto Devontae Freeman, I mean, he's kind of solidified himself as the RB1. I mean, they really don't have any other choice, but yeah, I mean, he 13 for 79, and he finally found the end zone, which is good. It was on a receiving catch, which he's been pretty well. He's been doing pretty well at. Not great, but I don't know. I think you have to go with him, especially because first of all, the Ravens love to run a lot. Options, reverses. They like to trick things around here and there. So he had a team high 53 yards off of 9 carries in the win over the Chargers. And then the next 2 weeks, he went 4 for 14. But I mean, they got blown out by the Bengals, and then he went 13 for 79. So I think it was just an outlier against the Bengals. He is their RB1. I think he's a win right now, at least. There's really no other option on the Raven. I mean, you're not going to put Le'Veon Bell in there. I'm sure Le'Veon Bell's available in a lot of leagues, but
Yeah, but I
yeah,
mean, like, you can't
I
trust
actually
Le'Veon
looked to
Bell.
pick up Devontae Freeman last week, but he wasn't available. So yeah, I'd take him.
Yeah, and I think if we're on that game too, I think Marquise Brown is going to be. I mean, we're doing something a little different. Usually, we just go running back, wide receiver, wide receiver, tight end. But I just feel like the game by game is just those. Most of these guys are playing each other. So I mean, a lot of the guys we talk about. So if we're on that same game, I mean, Marquise Brown's going to be a winner as well. I think you got to lock him in. Lamar Jackson's favorite target, favorite red zone target, hasn't thrown to Mark Andrews as much. Mark Andrews had that streak, but recently he's been going Marquise Brown. Marquise Brown even had like a rush attempt last week. The jet sweep. They love to do that every once in a while. So I think Marquise Brown's a sure thing winner this week. I know the Dolphins have a good defense, but I mean, I think the Ravens win by 20 points. I mean, I think it's like a 30-10 game. What are your thoughts, Grant? What are your thoughts on Marquise Brown?
Yeah, I mean, he did return to practice on Tuesday, so he was a little bit banged up, but I mean, he's going to be active on Thursday against the Dolphins. And dude, he's been balling out ever since everyone stopped calling him Hollywood. He's been going crazy. He went 9 for 116, man. Like that's the Hollywood Brown. That's the Hollywood Brown, not Marquise Brown. That's Hollywood Brown that we used to talk about. So yeah, man, he's seen double-digit targets in 3 of the last 4 games. I mean, that's going to translate to points for you, even if he doesn't catch them. The targets are going to get you some points just because he's going to catch a few of them at least. And they like to throw him. I mean, Lamar Jackson loves to throw it deep to him. That's probably the only guy he will throw it deep to. And he has 200-yard performances in that span. So yeah, I mean, all those things really add up to a sure win, an automatic insert into your lineup.
Definitely.
So
Definitely. I'm with you there. Go to a guy that had 3 touchdowns against the Niners last week, James Conner. He's playing the Carolina Panthers, who just are slotting in the shutdown corner, Gilmore from New England, just locking him in, getting settled. They have a really good defense. I actually think, Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins probably going to be back. So I think that James Conner is going to be a loser this week, even after 3 touchdowns. I know Chase Edmonds is out. I just don't think they'll be able to establish much of a running game besides maybe Kyler Murray. I think they're going to have to pass the ball against this Panthers defense. And look, Panthers defense by no means has been good. I mean, it has been really good, but like on paper, they give up a lot of points. That's because they're pick sixes from Sam Darnold, not because they're bad at defense. So I'm gonna say James Conner. This is a very surprising one. You probably will say he's a winner because he's gonna be the only running back for the Cardinals this week, and they're on a roll right now. But he just came off 3 touchdowns. But he's going to be a loser this week, as crazy as it sounds. No, I don't think there's any. I mean, there's a chance, but I don't think he gets 50 fantasy points.
that's a pretty hot take. I just think now that Kyler, I don't know if Kyler Murray is going to play, but um, he had 20, I mean, he had 21 attempts for 96 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's really good, and that's kind of because he was basically the focal point of the offense. I mean, Kyler Murray was out, DeAndre Hopkins was out, so they kind of resorted to Colt McCoy and him just finding a groove, and it worked. The game before against Green Bay, he went 5 for 22, but he still had 2 touchdowns. So it's like he's been finding the end zone the whole year. I'm going down the game log. There's a few zeros in there, but everything's 2, 2, 2, 1. He's had a lot of touchdowns, and I think it's just on the running side because on the receiving side, I can understand why you'd say no, he's a sleeper because the best game that he had was last week. He went 5 for 77, which is like wide receiver numbers. Like that's really good. So I don't know. I think that's just because Colt McCoy was dropping it off to him. That wasn't really like a thing that they tried to do. So but I still love his productivity right now. Even on his off games, it was 10 for 64, like 8. He's getting a lot of attempts, which I like. So yeah, I think he's a sure insert.
So we obviously disagree there. I think you sit him, but let's go to a guy that is going up against a Green Bay defense. It's pretty good. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is likely going to play, even though he's only allowed to come back to practice one day before the game. I mean, they're not going to slot in Jordan Love in there. And he didn't look that good. I mean, he didn't look terrible, but he didn't look good against Kansas City. It was one of the worst defenses in the league. So I think Chris Carson it might be back this week. They're saying they're monitoring him throughout the week at practice before he's cleared Sunday. This is a guy that hasn't played in a long time. Alex Collins has been in there and he's been so unproductive. Alex Collins, like that's a definite sit. But if Carson plays, this might be crazy to say, but I think he's going to be a winner this week. I think he gets over 15 fantasy points if he plays. Collins, definitely. If Collins is the guy, no fantasy points.
Oh, that's crazy because I was kind of thinking the opposite just because Russell Wilson's coming back this week. So I feel like they're going to throw it a lot more. I mean, look, he's probably not going to throw it just as much as he did, before he was hurt because they kind of need to work him back into game shape. I mean, I'm sure he's in good shape, and you need to kind of work him back. And it's tough because they're going up against a formidable opponent in the Packers, so they're going to have to throw the ball if they want to win. And this is kind of a make or break game for the Seahawks. I feel like they kind of got to throw the ball. So I don't think Chris Carson's going to get a lot of looks. I mean, sure, he's been okay. I mean, he's going to return from the injured reserve, but I just think their passing game is going to be a lot better this week, just because they have Russell Wilson in there, and Russell Wilson's going to try to like insert himself, but he's going to be. I think this is like a Russell Wilson revenge game. He's going to insert himself and be like, "Dude, this is what you guys have been missing."
I think it's going to be a mix. I think everyone always expects Russell Wilson because he has the talent to throw like 300 plus yards with 4 touchdowns. But I think it's going to be one of those things where Carson gets like red zone snaps and he'll just run it in for like 2 touchdowns and maybe 50 rush yards. I think DK is an obvious winner this week. That's going to be a huge game. I think Seattle wins this game, even though Rodgers plays. I think Seattle will win this game.
Wow.
I really do. And that's a hot take. I know we don't really
predict
many games, but DK, specifically DK Metcalf's going to have one of the best games he's ever had, even against Jair Alexander. I think
I really like the way you think because I have Metcalf on my fantasy teams.
Dude, so. Metcalf should be like the best receiver in the NFL. He's just a mismatch night. He's the best receiver in the NFL.
Yeah,
like I don't think
why I got him. I got him really early.
Like, if we're talking pure talent, it's like him, Hopkins, I guess. Well, Tyreek Speed, so Tyreek, Devontae. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp, but he's more of like the game plan that he's benefiting from. You know what I'm saying? Like pure talent, DK is like a top wide receiver. Like he's insane.
Yeah.
Keep their eye on, even if it's not on TV. This is a must watch game. Next, I want to go to Josh Jacobs. I know we're talking a lot more running backs than any other position, and we're almost going to wrap it up. But Josh Jacobs, I can't trust that guy, even against the Chiefs. I think he's a sure thing loser this week. He's wildly inconsistent. I understand that the Raiders don't have Ruggs. They barely target Waller and Renfro. Derek Carr is obviously, it's a sad situation. They obviously aren't handling the Ruggs thing that well. They obviously miss him. They love him as their teammate, and it's a very sad situation. Obviously, Rick Ruggs did something extremely stupid, and he brought a spark to that team that they have. You know what I'm saying? He had speed. Darrell Williams is another guy in this. I think he's going to be a loser. I don't think he has a big game. I know he was a winner last week, and we said he was going to be a loser. We were wrong about that, but he's going to be a loser this week. I think Mahomes is going to get back to his Kelsey Hill. I think they should start like rushing Hill, like jet sweep, stuff like that. Maybe touch pass, stuff like that.
Ooh.
I think Williams is a loser. I think Josh Jacobs is a loser. I wouldn't trust anybody on the Raiders, and the only guys I trust on Kansas City are Mahomes, Hill, and Kelsey, the usual. What are your thoughts there?
Shoot, I don't even trust Mahomes the way he's been playing for me. But yeah. I'm with you on those. Josh Jacobs, it's so unfortunate, dude, because he has so much talent, and I just don't know. First of all, he keeps getting hurt, so there's one thing. But it just seems like he just can't break out. Like there's no breakout game for him. And it's unfortunate because I really like Josh Jacobs. He's very explosive as a running back. But just going down his like game log, it's like the most rushing yards he's had is 76, which is last week, and 76 isn't even that much. So yeah, I'm with you with Josh Jacobs. As far as Darrell Williams, yeah, first of all, I don't really like any running back on the Chiefs. I feel like they're just so heavy on pass. And even when they do try to run it, like you said, they're going to use Tyreek Hill. Like they're going to use him in a jet sweep or in a reverse or, a quick out to him. It's really not going to be a running back. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, poor guy. he's a sideline still. He was an integral
He was
part of
just
their
like
offense.
excluded from the offense.
No, I know. It's so unfortunate, but yeah, with Darrell Williams in there, I just don't see him getting enough reps for him to make an impact in fantasy at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. We should talk about a couple more receivers. Another guy is Devontae Smith, our usual. You got to bring him up every week just because he's been so wildly inconsistent. Playing Denver, and this might sound crazy, but and I'm usually wrong every time I guess Devontae Smith, but I'm going to say Devontae Smith is going to be a winner this week. I really do. I mean, he's coming off 119 one touch game. I know Denver has a good defense, but as long as he's in the game plan, like he always plays well, like he's an obvious mismatch problem. And Denver's defense obviously took a hit after Von Miller left, even though it against the Cowboys, granted Dak himself. So, and Zeke obviously didn't have a good game. So, I mean, I just think that he's the guy, the wide receiver that Hurts is going to throw to. And I think this is going to be a higher scoring game than people think. I really do. So I'm going to go. Jalen Hurts is obviously a winner every week. We don't need to talk about him because he rushes so much that even if he has like a terrible game passing, he'll still be a winner in fantasy. Jalen Hurts, winner. Jordan Howard, loser. Boston Scott, loser. I think it's going to be one of those games where Hurts runs for like 2 touchdowns and then throws one to Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. Like he's a 4 touchdown game. And I think Boston Scott and Jordan Howard are just excluded from the game plan. So I'm going to call that. And everyone on Denver is a loser. I don't trust Cortland Sutton, loser. I don't trust Jerry Jeudy, loser. We were right about Cortland Sutton, actually. He's guarded by Trayvon Diggs, did nothing. Even though Jeudy was back, we thought Jeudy wouldn't play, but Jerry Jeudy, loser. Cortland Sutton, loser. Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams, both losers. Teddy Bridgewater, loser. I think Philadelphia wins this game.
I'm going to disagree with you on the Broncos side. On the Eagles side, I agree. Look, Devontae Smith, my man, I'm so sorry for what I said last week, brother, because you went out and proved me wrong, man. I know you're gonna watch this. I know you're gonna view it. I know you're gonna click that Instagram story. I want you to know, man. I'm very impressed with what. Look, we said all along. Me and Brandon both said all along. It wasn't Devontae Smith's fault. He's a very. I mean, there's a reason he was drafted like that, dude. He has a lot of talent. He is size. I mean, sure, he's gonna get a little bigger. He's kind of thin right now, but man, the dude's talent and his skill level is off the charts. And you've seen it. I mean, look at he just proved it to us. He went 5 for 116 with the touchdown, and he looked amazing. He looked like one of the best receivers in the league. So he had his best game as a pro in week 9. There's really no questioning his ability, his talent. So I'm going to go yes on him. I think we lighted a spark under him, Brandon. I really think we did. But in terms of everybody else, I'm not in on it. I'm sorry to roast your teammates now, Devontae Smith.
Yeah. And you said for the Broncos,
For the
what do you think?
Broncos, there are 2 guys that I'm actually in on. I'm in on Tim Patrick. If Tim Patrick is still in your waiver claim list, if he's still on the market, get him, because I did. And let me tell you, man, he put up numbers for me this last week. I got him somehow. He was still there. I got him. He performed extremely well. The dude is a beast. He kind of reminds me of like a Darren Waller if Darren Waller was a little smaller, like a little thinner. He's just kind of got that like dog in him, and I think like Tim Patrick's going to be an X factor for the rest of the season. So pick him up if you guys. I don't know. He might not be anymore, but and then another guy who did very well for me, Melvin Gordon. I know you said you don't like him, but man, he put up numbers, man. He hasn't been awesome. Like he hasn't been like RB1, like oh my god, but he's been pretty good for me at least. I mean I should know because I've had him. He's been pretty decent at least in the running game. I mean the passing game he hasn't been as effective, but running the ball he hasn't been bad. And you kind of saw it against the Cowboys. They just hammered the Cowboys with the run. And Melvin Gordon took the brunt of it and he did his job, man. So I like those 2.
Absolutely. I'm with you there. Let's go. Before I want to end on the Rams Niner game because that's a really interesting game for fantasy purposes because, the Niners were awful last week. No one knew why they were awful. Rams have been on a roll, even though I lost the Titans. I'm going to say right here, I want to hear your 5 best quarterbacks plays for the week that are fringe. Like we're not not like a Josh Allen or like obviously start Josh Allen against the Jets. Like, come on, I'll have a bounce back game. I'll probably have the game of his life against the Jets. But I'm talking about guys like Carson Wentz against the Jaguars, Jimmy Garoppolo against the Rams. Talking about those types of guys. Matt Ryan against Dallas. Dak Prescott's a must start. But you get what I'm saying here. Ryan Tannehill against New Orleans. New Orleans is great defense. So I guess I'll go first. I'm going to say right now, obviously we're out on Baker Mayfield and Mac Jones. We've already said that. I'm going to say you got to slot in, and this might sound crazy, slot in Kirk Cousins against the Chargers this week. Kirk Cousins is going to be a winner. I think that the Chargers, they have a good defense. Asante Samuel is a great corner as well. Derwin James is obviously great as well. But I think Kirk Cousins, he's starting to find his role a little bit. Even though they're losing close games, he's starting to roll. And I think obviously Herbert's a must start on the other side. But then I would go directly to Jalen Hurts. Well, he's not fringe, but yeah, you got to start Jalen Hurts. Definitely not Teddy Bridgewater. I think you got to go. I think Ben Roethlisberger is a cool play against Detroit. I think it's crazy. I think he's a good play against Detroit for fringe.
Everyone's
guys.
a good play against Detroit. That's not.
Well, yeah, but like,
good,
yeah,
good
Ben
pick,
Roethlisberger is a good play. I mean, he was. I was very surprised. I go into Atlanta. I think Matt Ryan's a great play against Dallas. I know Trayvon Diggs is great, but Matt Ryan's actually had a sneaky year, and like he should be in like a sneaky 10th or 11th MVP voting. For whatever reason, he's doing really well. And like after the Falcons weird note, Cordero, Matt Ryan, and are just like 2 MVP candidates right now, which is pretty great. So those are the quarterbacks I think that are on the edge. And Wentz against Jacksonville. Yeah, Wentz is going to be a winner this week too. So those are 5-6 winners I think for the quarterback position. What are your thoughts there? Who are yours?
Yeah, those are very good picks. One guy I do want to. I was basically going to go with all those. I really like Kirk Cousins this week. But I was going to go with who's that going to? Oh, PJ Walker, the Carolina's backup, because Sam Darnold's out, and I think PJ Walker. I mean, I've liked PJ Walker ever since he was in the XFL. But I really like. I mean, I know he's going up against Arizona, and I know Arizona's been formidable, but I think PJ Walker is really dynamic, and I think this is like I've wanted this for so long. I've wanted him to just have this opportunity to like prove himself in the league, because in preseason he looked awesome. I know it's preseason, everybody looks great, but I've liked his game for a while, and now he finally gets the chance to have that team with Darnold out. So you're going to see kind of a dynamic look there. Another one, maybe, and this is a maybe, big maybe, is Trevor Siemian against Tennessee. I know Tennessee's awesome, but Trevor Siemian looked pretty good against the Bucs. He kind of dismantled that Bucs defense, which is crazy to think. And then you have obviously everyone else, like you said, Matt Ryan. I don't like Teddy Bridgewater, definitely. I don't like Taylor Heineke. And Ben Roethlisberger against the Lions. Everyone's good against the Lions. If they lose to the Lions. If he does bad against the Lions, then he's absolutely washed. I still think he is, but yeah, it's basically all the same guys you said. I'm not going to take Jimmy Garoppolo against the Rams. Definitely not. I would take Trey Lance if he was starting, but he's not in there.
Dude, Trey Lance is honestly one of the worst defenses in the league, and that's crazy to say, but like that's even with Von Miller, Aaron Donald, like they just triple team Aaron Donald. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is triple team him. So, anyways, all right, let's end on this because this is the longest football podcast we're gonna have. Fantasy Files. Sorry, I think it's over like 52 minutes right here, about 50 minutes maybe. Let's go to the Rams-Niner game to end this, and we're just gonna pick winners here. I think Elijah Mitchell. He didn't play up to his potential, but I think he's a sure thing winner this week against the Rams. Who have one of the worst defenses in the league, and I think Elijah Mitchell definitely benefits from that. I think if we're going, I think Brandon Ayuk is going to be a winner this week. Someone who actually had a comeback week. Some guy we were talking about him. When is he going to show up? Well, he showed up last week, and obviously Jalen Ramsey's going to be guarding Deebo Samuel. So Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, we already said is a winner, and Elijah Mitchell are going to be winners. For the Rams, you got to understand, obviously Cooper Kupp, Darrell Henderson's going to be a winner. Robert Woods. But a guy I'm going to go with is Van Jefferson. I think Van Jefferson is going to be a winner this week. I think it's one of those games he gets a touchdown. The Niners defense is in shambles. Like I said, they can't guard air. They're, like I'm saying, they're just the worst secondary in the league. Maybe. I mean, unless the Cardinals B team, they were favored, bro. Bettors actually thought the Niners were going to win that game because Kyle Shanahan's still quoted genius, but obviously he's not. Otherwise he would have won that game. And I know it's some responsibilities on the players, but those are the winners there. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that. Can I put another one? I don't know if this categorizes as offense, but Robbie Gold.
Yeah,
Robbie
yeah.
Gold's gonna
Robbie
get a whole
Gold's
bunch of
great.
points.
Yeah, great.
Because I don't really have confidence in them getting too far down into the red zone, so I'm going to go with Robbie Gold maybe. But yeah, on the Rams side, I think Matt Stafford has a bounce back game. Van Jefferson I think is being incorporated way more now just because Deshaun Jackson's out. They kind of use him as a deep threat. Cooper Cup's been great every week, so I'm not really worried about him. I don't think Robert Woods is going to be as effective. I may be wrong, but I just have this feeling that one of those receivers is not going to have a great week. And I think Robert Woods is going to be because Robert Woods had a few off weeks. I think it was last month or something. He had a few off weeks where it was like, is this guy washed or is he not getting the looks? He's not getting the targets. But it's just sometimes it's usually with the Rams. It's like one of the receivers is just not going to get the targets one game, and then the next game it just flip flops. So I just think it's Robert Woods' turn here. But yeah, I mean this should be a Rams win. I thought it would be a Rams win last week, and look what happened. So yeah, I'm basically in agreement with you.
You just never know. Well, that's it for today. Thank you so much to Grant Mona and to our fans. We're your co-hosts, Brandon Deutsch and Grant Mona, and hope you loved it. Check us out. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok. And again, it's that we're all about as well. Go to ballersportsdialogue.substack.com. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.